Hey Zach, how you doing?
One sec. I just had things playing in the background. Think we're good. Hey, Jeremy.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm really good. We'll
Awesome.
probably have a few people joining in on the live, so I'll be admitting them as they jump in. For those that are either watching live or watching the replay, this is actually the first. I'm pretty sure this is the first time we've interacted live directly. But I've been following your work for quite some time, and um, just the results that I'm seeing that you're getting with uh, people that I know, like 6 degrees of separation, how, even 1 or 2 degrees, where I'm hearing all of these just fantastic results with the relationship work that you do. So I'm really excited about this one. And again, for those that are listening um, live, if you're joining in live and you've got questions, you can put them in the chat, and hopefully we'll get to them. But so just, I guess to begin with, Zach, how did you get into relationship coaching? Like, how did this all come about?
Well, I've been doing a lot of self-development stuff for a long time. Been interested in it, ever since my early 20s. And I initially got into actually teaching pickup for men back, I think, when I was 24 years old, and I'd been really working on myself. And when I say pickup, I'm talking about meeting women authentically, going up to women, genuinely telling them that they're beautiful and meaning it, and trying to meet them and go on dates with them. And I was really interested in that because it was like I was a terrified little boy back then, and I had developed myself to a huge extent, and then started coaching other men, and started getting really great results with them. I'd always really, even back then, I was really interested in relationships and like wanting to coach relationships. It's just I had no experience, and and the one serious relationship I had back then went horribly. I had to move to Africa to get away from her,
Oh,
basically.
wow.
I mean, half of it was definitely my fault, but I didn't really realize that at the time. But then it was much more recently. So I'd been married to my wife for 3-ish, maybe 3 years, I think. And it had taken a big downturn. We had just had a son, and we had been like two very hyper independent people. And then all of a sudden we had a son, and she needed me a lot all of a sudden. And she was trying to get her needs and wants met in a very masculine way, right? Like, leading, right? Essentially leading me. And it was unbelievably irritating for me. And at first, I really started to question, maybe I'm like a mild narcissist or something. Like the fact that I could objectively see, wow, she really needs my help, but this is really pissing me off. And I don't like any of this, right?
Yeah.
And that was when I came across Mark Benet, who's on my team now. He was just posting things on his wall about masculine and feminine polarity. And with my background with meeting women and all of that, and like that's how I learned how to lead. I realized, like, whoa, there is something huge here that I somehow missed in all of this self-development work. And I just tied it together with all the other kind of models that I'd had, and just really changed my relationship in an amazing way in a very short period of time. And then there's no going back after that.
Beautiful. So like, again, for the listeners, how do you change a relationship? Maybe maybe I'll take a step back. So what you're talking about is this dynamic of polarity. Um, maybe can you just talk into that for a little bit, and then I've got so many questions to ask about this. So yeah, so essentially what you're talking about is repolarizing the relationship.
Yeah.
Can you maybe just speak into what what is polarity?
Yeah. First of all, we might need a trigger warning here. So a lot of the stuff that I talk about can
It's
be very
polarizing.
triggering, especially for women. So
Yeah.
all I ask is, you know what, is something's like, what the hell did he just say? Just stick with me here. It'll come together, but sometimes it takes some time. So when I'm talking about masculine and feminine polarity, I am talking about a man who is leading everything energetically, right? So he's making the decisions, he's making the plans, he's setting the expectations and boundaries for the relationship. So energetically, he is trying to get outcomes. He's leading towards an inner vision of what he wants the relationship to look like, what he wants himself to look like, what he wants his woman to look like. And if a man is healthy, right, like you, a lot of women will be like, what the hell? But that's because they've experienced unhealthy
Unhealthy.
men
Yeah.
that are doing it in a very domineering way, controlling way. It's like they're very self-interested. I'm not
Yeah.
talking about that.
Yeah.
Talking about leadership in a very devoted way. Like with my wife, like I care very much that she's happy, right? And feels safe and cherished and everything. And so my leadership, it's all done energetically as a gift, right? I am giving my leadership to her. I'm not taking from her. And I'm always considering her feelings, right? And so let's get into a woman's role in this. It is to submit, right? It's to let go of control and follow a man's leadership. And if you look at, a salsa dance or tango dance or whatever, that's essentially what's happening in a relationship, right? So it's two equal dance partners, just very different roles. The man is leading everything and the woman's letting go of control, and they have an incredible dance. A woman is communicating her feelings. She's communicating her needs in a way where she's not trying to get an outcome. She's just expressing what's going on inside of her, expressing problems, expressing feelings, expressing her needs, and asking permission for things.
Beautiful. So this is at surface level saying that, like, it does make sense, but this is a very, very deep subject, and there are a lot of nuances to the energy, how it's felt, how your head can get in the way, and really those innate dynamics between how a feminine energy will express itself and a masculine energy. It's a massive subject. What are some of the problems if the relationship is not polarized? Like, how would you know? Because, and these are very leading, and I'm in the space of coaching this dynamic, but yeah, how would typically this show up in your clients? What sort of problems would they be presenting?
So there's lots of possibilities. And some will fit for one couple and it's not going to fit for another, but I'll just kind of list them off. So one is there's likely to be conflict, right? Especially if it's two masculine entities that, unless like the man's really feminized, maybe he'll in a way kind of enjoy it. But if it's two masculine entities, the man's going to get really irritated and the woman's going to resist his leadership, and it's going to be fights, right? Conflicts. My relationship, there are no conflicts. My wife just has to express how she feels, and I'll try to make the best possible decision. But when women are uncomfortable being vulnerable, conflicts are going to happen because she's going to be communicating in a way that's going to be leading and essentially disrespectful to a man's leadership. Another big one is a lack of sex, right? I see this a lot, and it's typically the man that wants to have sex and the woman that doesn't, though it can be the reverse too, where couples having sex, once, twice, 3 times a month, less, maybe more, but it's not several times minimum a week like it can be in a polarized relationship, right? Because A polarized relationship, the honeymoon period might sound like a Disney fantasy, but it is indefinite. It doesn't go away. In fact, it builds. The more polarized a relationship becomes. So sex is always happening. Um, what else? So there's unmet needs. For a woman, this typically means like she feels really unheard, unsupported, unheld, like not cherished. And there's usually a lot of resentment that's built up. And for a man, it typically means, he feels like really irritated and unreceived, right? Like he's not able to lead. So he'll typically, men will typically withdraw, often do a lot of stonewalling, right? Because when a woman, when a woman's communicating in a masculine way and trying to solve problems, it's just going to be so irritating for a man that he's going to shut down his communications. Like, I don't want to deal with this, don't want to even listen to you, don't want to be in the same room as you anymore. So it just, he really emotionally checks out, and shuts down. Other big ones, those would porn, especially for men, right? When a man feels emasculated, he's going to want to take out that need for polarity in very superficial and, relationship destroying ways. So watching a lot of porn can be very common. Cheating for both partners, emotional or physical, sexual, very common. And partners typically just don't really want to be with each other that much, because it's like it's roommates, only if it gets bad, it's a lot worse than roommates.
Yeah. So look, this is like what you're describing is in my experience, unfortunately, the vast majority of, certainly in the Western world, the vast majority of relationships are depolarized. It's almost like society is inverted, or encouraging people to invert in terms of the energy. Do you think that's do you think that's the case, or and do you think that's deliberate, that inversion's been orchestrated?
Oh yeah, we could get totally conspiratorial about it. A nation or world full of slaves, full of emasculated men, it's a slave state.
Yeah.
Right? When men are too emasculated to even stand up to their woman, they're sure as hell not going to stand up to their government. And if you look around today, that's exactly what you see. It's a really big problem. The people that are standing up to their government right now, it's actually predominantly women. That is not the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be the men that are protecting women and children from the government, from tyranny. And that's not what's happening. So absolutely. And you can look at it in like media, television, everything that we are programmed with today. It is about the man, being a lazy sack of garbage, not really doing much, lazing around on the couch, and the woman who's, irritated and kind of in charge and organizing. And that's what you see in most relationships, and that's why they're complete disasters. And of course there's movements as well, like the whole feminist movement. You can argue about whatever it started as. I think the whole thing is a bag of crap, but you can make somewhat of a case that it started out good. But if we're talking about what the fruits are now and have been for a long time, what has it resulted in? It has resulted in women who are stressed out, who are very much in their masculine, who have completely dishonored their feminine self, right? They're operating fully from their masculine, and men are not interested and have checked out and are playing video games. And this isn't to blame women or anything. We're all victims in this, and we have to stop being victims. But that's the reality that's been created, and it's a complete disaster for society, and for relationships and for love.
Yeah, it's a massive problem. So look, this this dynamic that we're in, um, what are some of the first steps that let's talk to the men to begin with. What's some of the first steps that a man can do to, first of all, take, and I'm leading here, take responsibility? What can a man do to start to correct this situation in his own life?
Well, first of all, the first thing I'd recommend is figuring out what the hell your purpose is in life, right? Like, why are you here? Because if you don't have any purpose, and the whole centerpiece of your life is a woman, is your woman, or if you're single, then some woman out there, then it's going to be a lot harder to find your balls to really stand up to your woman, to be able to risk things, right? Because it's like, if this woman leaves, then my entire world falls apart. And that's a really difficult, insecure place to be leading from. Is when you have your purpose, you know why you're here. This is what fills you up. This is what takes, this is what takes your energy and also recharges so much of your energy, which you can give to the relationship instead of sucking off of it, sucking off of your woman, essentially, taking her energy in the relationship. You're now in a much better position to lead, right? So you got to figure out what that is. As far, if we're talking about in a relationship, let's say we're in a depolarized relationship already, as a man, you've got to realize, like, it is okay to lead, right? Like, that is your role in the relationship. Um, you and it is a gift to your woman, even if she doesn't like it
Yeah.
in the moment, right? Even if
Yeah.
she's really resistant, even if it really pisses her off, even if she is talking about how you're disrespecting her and blah blah blah, it is a gift to her. And you can either eventually show her, or if she's not willing, she's not budging no matter what, you can be willing to leave the relationship ultimately. But I think the vast majority of relationships you can turn around as you really step into your power as a man. But and this is a really big thing, as you're realizing this, that it's okay to lead, you're going to be setting boundaries, expectations for the relationship, like, this is how it is now. Like, essentially, I'm going to be leading, and that's just the way it is. I'm putting my foot down on that, essentially. And having a conversation about, like, how, if you have a problem, like, what I want is to really hear about your feelings, all this stuff. But the big piece of this is, this cannot be domineering, right? This is not about controlling a woman. It is not about repressing her. It is not about trying to energetically take from her. This is about giving your woman a gift, right? And it can be really difficult for a man, especially if he's been emasculated his whole life, and now he kind of realizes this stuff, and it's like, oh, it's like, this is the way it's supposed to be, and my woman's still resisting me, and this is terrible. It can be really difficult to get emotionally centered and give this leadership, your boundaries, your expectations, your judgments, your directives, your everything as a gift. But you've got to make that your first priority, because if you try to lead, I mean, there's many reasons why it's a problem. If you try to lead in a domineering way, your woman's just going to get even more resistant, right?
Yeah.
Because she can feel like, I'm being taken from, and she is being disrespected, right? And that's going to be a really big problem. So that's your first really, really big challenge in the relationship, is to stay emotionally centered, but at the same time, make it clear, this is how it's going to be now. It's like, it's now Christmas morning. I'm giving you a gift. This is the way it's going to be now.
So in that initial phase, there's going to be a ton of resistance.
Typically, yeah.
What are your recommendations for a man to stay in his center?
Take as much time as you need to respond. So if your woman does something, like, she's like, don't leave me, don't tell me what to do, whatever, you know, step back, just 1 second. I need a moment. Take a moment to recenter yourself, right? There's no need that you have to respond right away. Take as much time as you need. If she starts talking, no, 1 second, I need a moment. Take the time, take whatever time you need to recenter yourself, and then re-engage. If it gets to a point where your woman is not respecting your leadership at all, right? Like, you might be saying, like, you're blaming me, stop doing that. You're trying to lead me, stop doing that, whatever. And she's completely resistant. She's just going nuts. It's totally fine to take a step back from the entire situation and be like, you know, I'm trying to lead right now, and you're being really resistant. I need to take a step back, and we will re-engage later.
Beautiful. So, in the event that you're in this process of starting to pick up on how, and again, I'm speaking to the men, how your partner or wife is showing up in the masculine, what are some of the languaging that can show up as? Like, I kind of want to, it's almost like I know you guys do role play. How, like, typically how is a man gonna sort of I'm answering the question, how is that going to show up? Like, is it initially, do you think it's just the languaging, or do you feel it first, or no?
Yeah, if a man's not gaslighting himself and he's not totally disassociated from his body, he's going to feel it, right? It's going to feel irritating when his woman is leading, right? And that's not a wound. Okay, there might be wounds on top of the irritation where she's like really pissed off and all this stuff, but the irritation itself is not a wound. This is instinctual programming. And there's really deep, cool reasons about why men would be programmed this way for the survival of our genes. But essentially, we're going to feel some level of irritation, right? And so what's some of the languaging that a woman is going to be communicating? Well, she's going to be leading, like, hey, can you do this? Please do this. I'd like you to do this. I want this, blah, blah, blah. It's all leading, right? When she's giving them, yeah, it's directional, or she's like giving a man solutions that she wants. A man's not going to want to do that. Right? I don't care how nicely a woman asks, communicates in that way. No man, unless he's like a really feminized approval seeker, which is not the kind of man you want, no man is going to enjoy in any way doing that. It's going to feel irritating. And even if he does it, which he might, just to avoid irritating you further, he's going to, it's like, oh, like, just, okay, back to porn, or back to my work shed, or anything to avoid this. So yeah, any kind of leading, any kind of blaming, right? And that, and more than just blaming, it's any kind of making judgments about him, right? Judging his behavior, judging his intentions, judging him. You're being selfish. Like, why are you always like not helping me? Anything like that. Once again, it's a man should be judging a woman. Okay, a woman should not be judging a man. And when I say judging, I don't mean like in a criticizing kind of way. A healthy man is going to be judging a woman as a gift, right? He's actually teaching her. He's trying to help her out of unhealthy behavior. So a man might say, hey, you know what? You're blaming me right now, or you're being selfish right now. Here's why. But not to criticize her, not to make her contract into to, like, that's what parents often do, right? But in that unhealthy way where it destroys a child's self-esteem. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a man giving judgments as a gift because he loves his woman, and he wants to give a woman his clarity, of what he's seeing so that he can help lead her out of that unhealthy behavior into healthier behaviors. But a woman, when she does that, and it doesn't matter how healthy, I don't want to even say healthy, but how, we'll say healthy masculine, right? Because like my wife, she is like a really well-developed masculine side, right? And she earlier on in our relationship, she was like quote unquote the mature one, and I was more of the child, and she'd be like, hey, you know, you're being disrespectful right now, very like objectively for the most part. As time went on, it got more and more blamey as I got more and
Yeah.
more irritated with it. But even then, like, you cannot play therapist, you cannot play mommy, you cannot play the grown-up in the relationship. As a woman, it is going to just turn, the more that you play that role, the more your man's going to turn into a child.
Yeah. So flipping the script here, what if it's the woman in the relationship that starts to notice that they are always leading or often leading, they're getting more demanding, they're feeling, you know, that their needs aren't being met, and that they're, you know, having to nag to get things done, and it doesn't feel good in her body, and obviously when it comes to then intimacy, she's not going to want to open up, because that feeling is you know, it's very self-protecting, it's a closed feeling energetically. What can she do to help her man step into a leadership role without leading him to lead? Because it's kind of a bit of it's a tricky situation.
Yeah. So yeah, so a few points here. First of all, most like if we're looking at men or women as like the ones that tend to be the first to change, because you can do all this work your own, right? A woman, if she does her polarity work, she can inspire a man into devotion.
Mhm.
And a man, if he does his polarity work, he can command the respect of his woman into submission and radiance and everything else.
Yeah.
It's better as a team, obviously, if both people are on board, but it can work with one. So what, and I'd say 3/4 of the people we work with on my coaching team, they are women. It's usually women. So what women can get into the very unhealthy habit of is learning this polarity stuff. It's still totally just conceptual. And then they start trying to lead a man to lead. Like, hey, you know, like, you need to be leading. I want you to be leading. Why aren't you leading? Like, you need to polarize this. Oh my God. Like, if you want to just really put that final nail in the coffin, that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
You can't lead as a backseat driver. It does not work. The only way now, energetically, when a woman does that, now a man can only submit. He can submit to your leadership to lead, and he's still submitting energetically. It's not going to feel good. So, and women aren't taught this, right? Like, we're taught in society to communicate, both men and women, in a softened masculine way, like trying to get outcomes in a really nice, placating kind of way. And what women need to do if they are in that kind of situation, like, I'm controlling everything, my man is checking out, all this kind of stuff, you need to get vulnerable. And it's going to be scary. It's especially going to be scary because in the past, your man may not, or you might not have perceived that he cared about your feelings. You know, you're opening yourself up to potential rejection and judgment and all kinds of stuff. But the problem is, most women, when they think they're being vulnerable, they're not being vulnerable. I have seen time and time again women who have said, like, oh, I was really vulnerable with my man and he didn't care. And then I asked her, like, okay, what did you say? And she said something like, it hurts my feelings when X. There's no vulnerability in that.
Yeah.
First of all, you're talking about it instead of you. You're not personalizing it. So you're avoiding vulnerability by talking about the it instead of the I feel. Second of all, if we're talking about the word hurt, hurt is actually there's a blame to that,
Blame.
an
Yeah.
energetic blame to the word hurt. So if you're ever using that word with your man, all he's going to feel is, I'm being blamed, I'm checking out, I don't want to deal with this, right? So one of the really big things that I help women do is actually learn to be vulnerable, to open up their hearts, to get out of their heads and fully embody their heart space. Because when a woman is being truly vulnerable, like, listen, when I do like enrollment calls for the academy, my high end program, almost every single woman cries with me, right? And like, I have to hold back tears when they're truly being vulnerable.
Yeah.
And they don't even have to cry, like, but they're in that heart space where I can feel their pain. There's no blame to it. It's like, oh my God, I just want to give you a hug. I just want to care for you. And I don't even know them, right? I don't even know them as well. I'm not their
Yeah.
man, but I care about, I
It
feel that
activates it. Yeah.
compassion so
Yeah.
much. Like, I just want to hold space for you. I just want to love you. I just want to take care of you. I don't want you to suffer, right? And so, and just think about how much more powerful that will feel for a man when he actually loves you, right? And the first time I experienced this, like, it's amazing. I had been with my wife for over 3 years. I think married to her for 3, and I think almost a year, like dating and stuff. We got married at 11 months. And like, she'd cried with me like dozens of times, but it was like blame crying, right? It's like
Mhm.
that angry kind of crying that a lot of men have experienced. And again, like, there was a bit of gaslighting on my part where I'm like, wow, why don't I give a shit about her feelings, right? She could be crying her heart out, and I'm like, ugh, I need to go. Like, I really don't want to deal with this. And it's because it was all blame, 100% blame. Doesn't matter how much pain she was in. All I could feel was the blame. And so I was like, kind of doing so, like, all the passive aggressive stuff, all the stuff that, you should never do with your partner. I've done it, right? I've done it. And so I know how, and with my last, like, really serious girlfriend, which was years before, it was the exact same pattern. She had never been vulnerable with me once. My wife had never been vulnerable with me once. And then when I started polarizing the relationship, and like, she was really resistant because her needs had been so unmet in like, we had a lot of fun together, but I wasn't considering her needs equal to mine and her feelings equal to mine. It's kind of like, oh, you feel insecure, you need to deal with that, you need to figure that out. And so when I started polarizing the relationship, there was a point where I came to her with something. I can't remember what it was, but it's like, I want you to work on this. This is really important for polarity. And it triggered something really big in her. And all of a sudden, like, this was a really important thing to me. There was like, this needs to be solved because this is really, like, emotionally, this is like, I really don't like what's going on. I wish I knew what it was. And it triggered something in her, and for the first time in our entire relationship, she was truly vulnerable. Okay. And again, vulnerability doesn't have to mean tears. In this case, it did mean tears. And she started crying. I have never felt this level of compassion for anybody, right? Like, even though I had this really big problem, in the moment, I didn't give a crap about what I was dealing with. All I cared about was her. All I cared about was all the, like, I guess, guilt. And like, I don't really feel guilt easily. I just, like, usually I'm like, I'll do whatever I want. I was like, oh my God, I just want to be a better man for you. I never want you to feel this way again. I never want you to feel these, like, that you don't matter to me, because you do matter to me so much. And like, I cried a little bit too. And it was full, like, compassion tears, which I didn't think I had any compassion for people. But I had so much compassion for her. And ever since, especially that moment, I'm like, in my head, I'm like, hey, how can I make her feel so cared for and cherished and considered all the time? Like, I'm thinking about that a lot, because I just didn't understand as a man how much I was negatively impacting her. Um, she had cried so many times in the past, but like, I couldn't feel any of her pain. When a woman is crying or not crying or whatever, but there's blame,
It's
um,
hardened. Yeah.
Yeah, like a man's heart shuts down to
Mm.
protect himself, right? It's like walls are up, I don't care, right? Some men who have like more guilt and a lot of approval seeking tendencies, yeah, sure, they might care, but it's actually about
Them.
his own
Yeah,
ego, right? It's not
manipulative.
about
Yeah.
her. But if a woman could get in that vulnerable space, wow, like the kind of men, I'm not saying every man, because there are like real narcissists and real sociopaths and people with real big problems, but most of the men the women are complaining about, where it's like he's a narcissist, he doesn't care, he's just an asshole, it's usually not true. It's
Mm.
just he can't feel your heart, so he can't care about your heart if he can't feel it.
And this is where that vulnerability is crucial for the connection.
Yeah.
And that's powerful. That's beautiful. So look at the beginning, when people meet each other, there tends to be a better polarity dynamic. And I know you do a lot of work with people who are in that dating space, obviously, as well as people who are in more committed long-term relationships.
Yeah.
When when people are in that dating space, and they're conscious about maintaining or creating that polarity. What's, again, maybe speak to the guys initially, what sort of things should a guy be doing in the dating, that sort of first, it might even be the first year of the relationship, but how should a guy be showing up in that dating phase?
Sure. Well, so, and this is something that I didn't learn much about relationships this early on, but when it came to, pick up meeting women, this is something I did get really good at. Um, because a woman's just not going to be interested in men who don't know how to lead. So a man should be leading everything, right? And if you think about the traditional date, a man picks a woman up and made all the plans and takes her there, and then gets a seat to the table and all that kind of stuff, and then walks her home, and he initiates the kiss. That's essentially what a relationship should be. This is what the entire relationship should be, an entire courting phase. He's leading everything, and the woman gets to go along for the ride, right? And if a man's a good leader, then it's a really great ride. And so men can be so passive today because they're afraid of rejection. And this was my really big issue, right? When I first started this, I was 23, I was a virgin, definitely not by choice. And I was terrified of rejection. Like, it was a woman rejecting me there. I would rather have wrestled bears. I would have rather jumped off cliffs. I would have rather done anything than risk that. But a man needs to be a man, you need to get over your fear of rejection. I don't care how bad it is. If I did it, anybody can do it, really. Because I had it worse than pretty much anybody. And so, you got to figure out what you want. On like, if we're talking about dating, okay, so what do you really want as a man? How do you want this date to go? Stop thinking about, oh, what if she doesn't like this, blah blah blah. Here's the thing: if you become a really confident guy who can have a really great conversation with a woman, and you can lead, doesn't matter what the hell you do. All right. I've taken women on dates. I'm not suggesting this. I'm just telling you what's possible here. I've taken women to Sears couching departments. I've done it dozens of times. That was our date. I've taken women through the mall. I've taken women grocery shopping. And then later we'd go to, like, I'd cook dinner at my place. We go to a park bench. We'd go get a coffee. These are all different dates. We'd go get a coffee. We'd go walk around everywhere. I lived in Toronto, so just walking around on the sidewalk. A few times I went to a restaurant, but I was a really big cheapskate, so that was rare. So I've done everything, and I've done all the kind of crappy, kind of like worst kind of dates possible. And the more confident and better of a leader and better of a conversationalist I became, the less that any of that crap mattered, right? And men who, like, we talk a lot about women with self-worth issues, but men who have self-worth issues, are going to believe like this needs to be the most amazing dating experience ever, and I need to spend my next 3 months paycheck on it, just like a wedding ring, which is the same kind of mindset actually. And it's such crap, right? It's the equivalent of a woman who believes like, oh, I need to step in my, like, I need to give my man these massages and cook him all these dinners and be planning things, because otherwise, I don't have any real value, right? My self-worth is low, so I have to supplicate and do all these other things so that I'm valuable to a man. Man does the same kind of thing, right? I don't have any real value. My wallet has all my real value. So I need to really wow a woman. No. If you want to wow a woman, fantastic, but do it because you love putting a smile on a woman's face and it just fills you with joy. Don't do it out of fear. Don't do it because you have low self-worth and you feel like you need to be doing these things to be worthy to a woman. A woman's going to feel that, right? A man feels it too, but for a woman who has low self-worth, but a woman feels it much more with the man because, I think evolution, a woman has a lot bigger consequences of having a child with a man that doesn't have much to offer, right? So she's going to feel that right away. You need to work on your self-worth. How did I work on my self-worth? I already kind of like love myself all the time, but I was just terrified. But I had confidence issues, right? How did I get over those confidence issues? By doing all of the things that, you would think a woman would be turned off by, right? Wearing crappy clothes, living in a crack den, have like going on the worst kind of dates ever. But I just became a really great conversationalist and really confident in myself. And that was more than enough. It really is more than enough. And men you need to realize that you're already enough, right? Your masculine energy is already enough. Your ability to lead is already enough, especially in 2021. Your competition is garbage. All right. You don't even have to be that great at this. You just have to be better than most guys, which takes almost nothing to do.
Just be present.
Yeah, just be present. Just make decisions.
Yeah.
Just don't put it on a woman's plate. So back to your initial question. Sorry, I got a bit off topic here.
Oh, good.
But everything. So, let's say it's online dating, because that's mostly, I encourage men to go out and meet women on the sidewalk and everywhere. But okay, initiate conversation, lead the conversation. After you find out that you like her, hey, I really like you. Let's get on a call. Right? You're not asking permission, any of this crap. Just assume that she already likes you because you're amazing. Why wouldn't she like you? Assume everything that way. Assume the sale. You're in sales. It's the same kind of thing. Your program's the most amazing program ever. Just assume that she already loves it, because of course she does. It's the best thing ever. It's going to totally change her life. You have a great conversation with her. Oh my God, you know what? We've got to go out together. You're amazing. You can say hang out, you can say go on a date, doesn't matter, whatever. Let's set up a day and time. Is Saturday, let's do Saturday, whatever. So you're just making assumptions with everything. You go out on the date, figure out the plans for that. You lead the whole thing. You assume that she's going to love it, because of course she's going to love it because you're there. Show her a really good time. You show her a good time not to impress her, right? It's not about your ego. It's about you, and it's just fun to make women happy.
Yeah.
That's the energy it needs to come from. You lead everything and continue leading. And this was my mistake, is, I went on some dates with my wife, eventually got sexual, and then kind of got lazy because I'd never really gotten past that point. I got really good at dating up to that point. But you've got to continue leading everything until you guys are dead or until you break up with each other. So, either claim her or make it clear what kind of relationship you want, right? If you want a relationship where it's like, okay, you're mine now, then claim her. Hey, you're my girlfriend now. I want to be just with you. You know, if that's not what you want it to be, then don't lead her on. Don't make her guess, right? Don't break her heart by like not having that conversation. And then 3 months later, it turns out that you're sleeping with other women. Just tell her your intentions, tell her what you want, tell her your expectations. If you're claiming her as your girlfriend, okay, you're my girlfriend now, and this is the way it's going to be. You know, I'm going to be leading, I want you to know that. And so she's really clear on the expectations. Guys are really bad at giving expectations for multiple reasons. One, they don't even know what the hell their expectations are. Two, they're afraid that they're going to get rejected for their expectations. Again, this is a self-worth thing. It's just like me taking women to the Sears department again, which I don't recommend. But it's like, I knew that I was enough. The date and my money and all that crap is irrelevant. I am enough, just like my expectations. I am already enough. These are my expectations. Hey, if you don't like my expectations, you don't have to stay with me. I'll find someone else. But you know, I already know I'm good enough. I already know that I'm amazing. So I'm going to be the one that is setting how things are going to go. And I'm doing it as a gift, right? I'm always considering her. Like, I want my expectations to be fair. And then you just continue on, right? Don't leave her guessing. And here's another really big thing. Like, if I could go back and do it all again, one of I wish I knew to ask a woman how she felt about things, and ask her that a lot. Because I teach women how to do that on their own and not rely on a man to do that, and to just learn to be vulnerable. But women are so terrified of that. They're just like a man's terrified of setting expectations in this. A woman's terrified of expressing her feelings and getting rejected for it, right? If you can open her up and make her feel safe to express any of her feelings and lead her out of any kind of blame feelings and into being vulnerable, she's never going to want to leave you,
Yeah.
right? If you're masculine as well, because she'll feel so safe with you and she'll feel so considered, and she needs to be able to communicate in this way. Because if she's not communicating with her feelings, she's either not going to be communicating at all, and then you're going to be hurting her unknowingly, or she's going to take out her insecurities, her neediness, her anger, her whatever, in ways that you really don't want, right? Like doing things to push you away, like being controlling, like all the whole needy thing with all that crap that you don't want to deal with. Just lead her to express her feelings, and you'll be so far ahead of the game.
So that's the dance you were talking about before, like the having a direction, and then how do you feel, like asking, how do you feel? And then receiving that, and maybe she's asking, well, what do you think? And then there's your chance to lead her again. So that's a perfect, like, it seems to be that's a pretty good description of the back and forth.
Yeah. Because if you think about expressing feelings, right? And here's a big problem that women will also do, is they'll manipulate. So in the academy program that we run, where we help women through all of this, and men, one of the big things that we started catching is, like, men and women will do live streams, right? They will actually get in front of everyone, and it's really scary. And the point is to move through all of your fears, because you either got to do it with a partner or multiple partners. You have to push through the fear to break through these patterns. And so what we noticed is a lot of women, when they're expressing their feelings, they're doing it with manipulative energy. And this is often really unconscious, where they don't even realize they're doing it. And that's going to be a big problem, because that's we talked about how a woman blames, right, with her feelings, and cries, and she's blaming. Same thing happens when a woman's manipulating.
Yeah.
I once had a woman, I went on well, I didn't really do much, but we slept together, and she cried afterwards. And that was partly because I hadn't set the proper expectations. I suppose I wasn't clear. And I was just so turned off. Like, it was so gross to me. And I didn't understand why at the time. Again, I thought maybe I'm just a bit of a narcissist. But the problem was she was manipulating her, trying to manipulate me with her
Her
feelings, with
feelings.
her crying. And I felt it, right? A man can feel when a woman is manipulating him with her feelings. And I'm like, yeah, I got to get out of here, right? And if she had been truly vulnerable,
Mm,
even though, we hadn't been spending much time together, it would have been like any other time of a woman's expressed her feelings. Instead, I was grossed out. And now what's the message that she's getting? Oh, I should never express my feelings because a man's not gonna care, right? So a woman needs to be really aware of this when she's doing it with that energy. And the problem is that so many women are not even conscious of when they're doing it. And the problem is, this is about trust. Okay. It's about trust, and it's ultimately about self-worth if we go even deeper. If a woman does not have self-worth, and I'm not talking about self-worth in like, oh, like I'm a successful business owner and all that. Like, no. That's masculine, more masculine self-worth. I'm talking about feminine self-worth, where I am worthy to receive just by being, without my accomplishments, without trying to get anything. I'm worthy. My feelings are worthy. My
mm.
feelings matter. My feelings are so valuable. My feelings are priceless. um a woman, when she has that self-worth, she will just automatically have faith in a man, that of course he'll want to take care of me, of course he'll care about my feelings, so I don't need to try to manipulate him into caring about my feelings. But when a woman doesn't have that self-worth, she's not going to have that faith, that trust that a man's
It's
going to
not
care.
inspirational. Yeah, it's manipulative.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to be inspirational, and she's actually going to self-sabotage by trying to get him to care, by manipulating him into caring, and then he's not going to care. And so these are self-fulfilling prophecies, right? If you have low self-worth, you don't believe that you're worthy of love and devotion, you're going to do things like trying to manipulate, which is going to ensure that your external reflection is one where you're not worthy. And same for
Beautiful.
men, right? Like all the
Yeah,
stuff we talked
it's
about, a man
yeah,
who feels like he has to do all this fancy stuff on a date, and he's like, I spent $500 and she didn't even want to kiss me. You created that reality
mm,
because your actions, your intentions were communicating that you have low self-worth and you're not worthy of a woman who wants to continue dating you and kissing you and being in a relationship with you. I mean, having sex with you. So what do you create? You created a wallet that has 500 less dollars in it, and a woman who's decided to sleep with somebody else.
so these dynamics obviously are going to show up in a lot of different ways. The group that this is being streamed into is has a lot of entrepreneurs. Um, there are, and I've had this conversation with several of my clients that are here in the group. Women that are in leadership roles, and they, for their role and for their occupation, they do need to be able to contend with other men and have directional masculine energy, as well as have dealing with their team and getting outcomes. That's very, as an entrepreneur, that is quite directional masculine energy. What are your recommendations for someone that's in that kind of a position, whether it's a leadership role or whether they own the business, but then are going back home into a potentially depolarized, or that polarity dynamic with their masculine partner, but they're potentially holding that masculine energy? What are some of your recommendations for someone that maybe doesn't want to give up their career, but still wants to have a successful relationship? Just
Sure.
for
So there's a few possibilities. So if we're talking about, let's say a woman doesn't change any stuff in her career and the way that she interacts. Well, when she gets home, she can do something that is really feminine, right? I don't know, dancing, bubble bath, put on something that's really feminine and flowy. Anything that gets her feeling more feminine is going to help, right? express her feelings, right? Not her thoughts, not her stories. A man doesn't care about, all the reasons that a woman's sad and the long story that she has behind it. Just get in touch with your feelings, get in touch with your heart, and express what you're feeling to your man. Man does care about how you feel if you can express vulnerably. Getting in touch with your feelings is one of the easiest ways to shift back into your feminine, right? Because women, when they're doing all their entrepreneurial or work stuff, they're going to be up in their head, a lot of planning, a lot of analyzing. It's very masculine, right? It's a very masculine place to be. She needs to be able to drop back into her heart and feel her feelings fully, and ideally express her feelings fully, because that can really help further shift her back into her feminine. The other thing that I would recommend, though, for these women, they're like, this can often be used kind of as an excuse. Like, I have this high powered job or business or whatever, and so I have to be in my masculine all day. Now, there's, in some cases that probably is true. So I don't want to say that what I'm talking about is universally applied. But women actually do have an amazing opportunity, if they choose to do so, to shift into their feminine, and stay there for a lot of their day in business. Like, I had a boss who was very, very feminine, who I actually felt like I was in charge as a man. I actually felt like I was serving her. She would ask permission for things that, like, I was supposed to be doing. And I'd be like, yeah, I totally want to do that for you. Like, you asked in such a nice way of, oh, I'm going to go out right now, do whatever you want. Because she's essentially deferring to me as the masculine, even though she is technically in a leadership position above me. I just wanted to step up and serve, because that's the way I'm programmed as a man, right? And again, this isn't about manipulating, because if you're doing it to manipulate, it doesn't work. That's not feminine. That's actually just covert masculine energy.
Yeah.
So it's about truly being deferential, truly about using feminine energy where you're not trying to control, right? But here's the big problem. Typically, women that are really successful, have their own really good businesses, or lawyers or doctors or whatever else, they have tons of masculine energy. That's how they got into those positions in the first place. And so letting go of all that control is terrifying,
Yep.
right? Both in the relationship and in their business or in their career. And so you've got a lot of work to do, right? You've got a lot of fears that you have to push through if you really want to be able to move into this. I'm just here to tell you it's possible. If you do the work, ideally get support, either from me or somebody else who knows what they're talking about, you can shift all of this. And the thing is, if you don't shift this in your business, and you don't shift this in your love life, you're going to get so burnt out. You can't, you try doing this for 30 years, operating from your masculine energy, you're going to get cancer. You're going to get some kind of degenerative disease. You're going to get adrenal fatigue. Women are not built physiologically to be operating from their masculine all the time, even just in a 8, 9 hour workday. That is not sustainable. That's going to destroy you. And so I really want, and it's just not going to be great conducive for a relationship either, because you think about it, feminine women are in their feminine all day long and working on becoming increasingly feminine. Masculine women, it's like, okay, here's a way, this might be triggering, but listen, if you're energetically masculine, right? It's like, yes, you can kind of, if you're with a masculine man, you can kind of drop that masculinity and be more in your feminine, but it's like you require a masculine man to be able to polarize you, right? A man's not going to be that inspired to serve you, right? He's not going to be that inspired to serve a masculine woman, even if she's able to be vulnerable, even if she's able to let go of a lot of that control in the relationship. A man is inspired by a radiant woman, a woman who's like her heart is just fully on her sleeve. She's able to just be, she's not doing vulnerability like, hey, I can express my feelings and like be vulnerable in moments. She is vulnerability. She's walking vulnerability. You can just feel it in her energy, her femininity, her softness. Like that is so irresistible to a man. A man is going to go to war for that kind of woman,
Yeah.
right? A man is going to work his ass off for that woman so that she doesn't have to work. Like she can work if she wants, but it's a choice. And like that is just the most inspiring energy that a man could ever be around. Whereas a woman who's like, hey, I'm going to work 9 hours doing all this masculine stuff, and then I'm going to try to get more into my feminine. No, it's like you're just a masculine woman that's can sort of be letting go of control a bit, right? What I want for women, and this isn't just so that they can have the dream relationship. This is about so that they can have the dream life, right? Whether you're working or not. If you want to continue doing your business, doing whatever, okay, it's possible. You can really be in your feminine energy so much of the time and live with your heart on your sleeve and be in your radiance and just inspire your employees, inspire your clients into taking care of you essentially. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but it's because we are in a very masculine paradigm of business. And it doesn't have to be that way. You can escape that. You can shift into something so much better, but you got to be willing to be courageous enough and do the work to do that.
Beautiful. So this sort of work is going to trigger. There's going to be triggers that are uncovered. What's your recommendation for when you discover that there are things that you're being triggered by in a relationship that are actually your stuff? It's not necessarily their thing, although that may be the case in some instances, but sometimes we discover the thing that we're getting triggered may be from something in our past or generationally or culturally. What is your take on addressing healing and wounds that you've brought into the relationship?
It's a great question. Let's talk about women first. So with women, and this is a big problem that we see a lot working with women, is even when we start teaching them how to be vulnerable, they're still in their head thinking like, oh, you know what, this is just my problem, so I'm not gonna bring this up with my man. Like, let's say she has an insecurity, maybe like a man, like, okay, I'm just trying to
Father
think.
figure.
Yeah, like, yeah,
Yeah.
some about, I'm thinking about like if he has like a female friend or coworker or something else.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, actually, here's a better one. She has like she feels like deep abandonment wounds when a man is not like in contact with her, say like every day. Okay, just like at least like a quick text. So it's like, oh, this is just my abandonment stuff. So I'm not going to bring this up with my man. I'm just going to work on this myself. Okay. First of all, good luck with that. It's going to be really difficult to do that by yourself. Second of all, being vulnerable with your man actually is emotionally responsible, right? Women will often think, oh, it's not responsible because like this is just my issue. No, it is responsible as long as you're being vulnerable, as long as you're not making it his burden to deal with, like that you need to solve this problem because I'm insecure. So you got to you got to text me more, right? And third, it's actually a gift to a man, right? Like a healthy, like I wish, like, I want my wife to need me more in a lot of ways, but in healthy ways, right? If she had more insecurities, if she needed me to text her every day and she came to me and said like, I feel really needy, I feel really needy and insecure, and she's really vulnerable about it, maybe shed a few tears, maybe not. And I inquired like, oh, why do you feel that way? Like, I don't know, when you don't text me, I like every day I start wondering the worst and getting really scared. I'd be like, oh, okay, no problem, I'm going to start texting you every day, right? And it's the same kind of thing as like, I'm trying to, men love to solve problems for their
Mm.
woman.
Yeah.
You really do. It feels good for them. It's like, I get to give this gift, and that makes me feel like a man. As long as a woman's not trying to control him into it in any kind of way. So it's just like, like my car broke down and man's a mechanic. It's like he's gonna feel good fixing that car for her because it's something that he can do to serve her. As long as she's again not controlling him into it. And so it's the same with any of these emotional problems. Sure, your abandonment stuff, that's your stuff. And yes, it is your responsibility to heal that. But a good man is going to want to give you the gift of helping you with healing that, right? Providing a safer container so that you can feel really, because it's going to be hard to heal that stuff when you're feeling anxious and unsafe all the time, right? Whereas when you feel totally safe with your man to just totally let go, you can just cry in his arms and feel everything that you need to feel, you're going to heal that abandonment stuff a lot faster, aren't you? Right? So a woman needs to get out of her head with this, like, is this my stuff to deal with? Is this his stuff to deal with? Doesn't matter. Just express it and have faith that your man will figure out how this can be solved if it needs to be solved. Sometimes it's just about holding space for you and having a shoulder to cry on, and that's it. Um, so that's a really big shift for women, because and especially women with low self-worth who believe that their feelings are a burden. Okay, women,
Mm.
your feelings are not a burden. Your feelings are a burden if you're using them to manipulate or blame, or you're just labeling them from your head. When you're in your heart and you're expressing your feelings, they're a gift to a man. They're beautiful to witness, they're beautiful to hold, and they are an opportunity for a man to step up and serve you with his gift, which makes him feel good. So that's for women. For men, if you've got your own insecurity things, it's going to, like, and that's the thing where men often gaslight themselves, like, is this my issue, or is this irritating because my woman's leading? A man is going to heal most of that stuff by learning to center himself. So don't gaslight yourself. If you're feeling like really crappy about something, then lead your woman to stop doing it or to start doing something that you do want, but center yourself. Because the more that you center yourself, the more that you're healing all of that past trauma that you've been experiencing. Okay. And you're feeling it fully in a different kind of way. And you're still able to lead your woman as a gift, right? Like if you thought about it, I'm just thinking, okay, I'm thinking about what would a man be a typical thing for a man to have something that comes up. um well, okay, let's just say like a man gets really, really triggered because his woman like judges him sometimes, right? So that's more than just the natural instinctual irritation that a man's always going to feel when a woman leads. There's trauma on top of that. And so every time, so you still got to lead, right? You still got to lead that, even though a big part of that is your trauma. But as you lead that, you're going to be giving that leadership as a gift, right? Because you're going to work on giving it from that energy instead of being domineering about it. And you are doing that healing work every time that you energetically give that leadership as a gift, and you're fully centered as you give it.
Awesome. So there really is like this, you know, polarity dynamic. Like it is a very, there are real differences in terms of how the healing occurs.
Yeah.
And from what I've experienced in my own life and from what I've seen, and again, shout out to the work that you're doing with both women and men, when that energy is polarized within themselves, like it just has this spillover effect in not just the relationship, but literally every area
Oh yeah.
of their life. It's incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Um, so you've mentioned a couple of times the academy and the work that you're doing there. Can you sort of, because I'm mindful of your time, and we've already gone over, and I can see we could
Oh wow.
go all different directions. Can you tell us what about the academy and maybe some of the different programs that you have to offer, and how to get in touch with you or your team? Because I know you've got a number of people working with you and for you. Maybe just speak into that. How what's the academy, and how do people get to work with you?
Sure. So the Academy is our high-end program. It's for both men and women. They're in the same group container, but they have totally different content that they're learning from. And they are learning together to polarize themselves, right? So this is what we've really created is incredible, where what women are doing, they're learning all their, we got 40 hours of video for each men and for women. Women are doing live streams in the group. They're learning in each one to get more into their heart, out of their head, and to really open up and be vulnerable and communicate from that vulnerable place, letting go of any blame and stories and inhibitions and validation seeking and all that kind of stuff. And um, then the other really big thing that happened, and so it's extremely active, right? Women can do as many of those as they want, and are rapidly shifting and healing, letting go of all control. Because control, it's not just about controlling a man. So much of control is about controlling perceptions, right? What happens for a woman when you let go of all control, trying to control how someone else sees you?
They're
Well, you're
vulnerable.
just going to be in your heart, and you're going to be
Yeah.
vulnerable, and it's going to be beautiful. And so that's a big part of it. And the other really big part that we do for women is we do role plays. So coach-led role plays. If you just imagine it, hey, if I'm your man, a woman is she's her, and we'll role play situations like your man made a huge mess in the kitchen and you feel a lot of irritation around it, or he's not texting you as much as you need, or whatever, right? He's broke his word about something. How can you communicate that in a vulnerable, feminine way throughout an entire conversation and stay fully graceful, stay not trying to control anything? Because there's a lot of it's more than just expressing feelings, right? It's about having an entire conversation. And what if your man's not as devoted as I am, right? What if he's still developing, or what if he's really immature, right? How do you deal with all those situations? So we'll deal with those, have you go through those over and over again. And then the men, they're learning all their own stuff, but the biggest thing, and men will do role plays, where a coach will be their woman. And so we'll role play with you, like, yeah, your woman just stepped up and led a little bit in a subtle way, or she, like, there's some blame there, she's trying to control. How do you deal with those situations? So we'll role play those with you, and then you'll get to role play with all of our women clients and lead the actual call, right? So this is about stepping up as a leader. You're like, I tell men, you're basically becoming a woman's femininity coach. So we're actually teaching men how to be femininity coaches for all these women, through our guidance and support, and stepping into their dominance, stepping into their power, to their leadership. And then, so leading the call, because what women will sometimes do, women clients, is that they'll feel a little unsafe or whatever and try to control something, or maybe step up and teach the man something. And the man has to be like, hey, you're leading right now, you're trying to teach me, don't do that, lovingly. And then it's the same thing with the role play. So then he'll actually lead the role play. They'll do it back and forth, just like they did with a coach, and get as much practice as they want, right? So um, this program is so unbelievably powerful, because it's not just about giving a bunch of information and support. We give tons of that, but the biggest piece of this is the experiential learning that happens, so much of which is about moving through your fears, your discomforts, your limiting beliefs, and becoming a much better version of yourself, right? A very much more vulnerable woman who feels worthy and who loves her feelings, who doesn't try to control anything, and a man who feels powerful and who feels comfortable leading, who feels like it's his place to lead any woman, essentially, from that loving, devotional place. So men and women go through this transformation really quickly. Even after just the first month, they're like, this is mind blowing. Like I've healed so much. I feel so much more confident, all this stuff. And it's a 6-month group program where they get to the other side, and, you know, everything gets so much easier, right? They've been, what's the word? They've been exposed to this work and to their work, and to all the experiential learning they've done for 6 months. So they're completely different people, and it's so amazing. So if you're interested in that, send me a message on Facebook and we can talk about it. So my account, I'm assuming you're going to give all the links below this.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
name, yeah. So just
I'll,
go to my profile, send me a link. The other thing, if you're like, well, this Zach Roedde guy sounds pretty interesting and is talking about a lot of stuff, and I want to know more about it. Maybe I'm not ready for a high-end program, but I definitely want to learn more. Go to my free group, and it's well, I don't even know what I've called it. Relationship of Your Dreams, Masculine and Feminine Polarity. I'm sure there'll be a link for that too. It's extremely active. We talk all about this kind of stuff. I make a bunch of posts and videos in the group, so you'll learn a lot. And then the other place that you can go is my website. So that's relationshipofyourdreams.com. On the website, I talk about my pre-academy program, which is for people who aren't ready to dive into the high-end academy program. Talk about the academy program, and I have 3 books there. So it's linked to Amazon. So my books, Irresistibly Feminine, Worthy Woman, and Don't Let Her Lead. They're actually, despite the titles, they're both for men and women. And they will really further open up your eyes, just like hopefully this call has, to the world of polarity and how to start implementing it into your life by changing the way that you communicate.
Beautiful. And again, look, again, those that are listening, I would highly recommend that you, if you're interested in having a polarized relationship, which should be everybody, to check this work out. I've been around a lot of this type of work for a very long time, and it's quite rare what you're doing in the actual experiential coaching. And I'm sure you get to hear that from a lot of people, but just want to honor the work that you're doing. And again, just I'm seeing so many powerful testimonials, and there's people that I know that have done work with you that have just raved about your work. So really appreciate your time today. And I'll be posting this in the group. And for those that are watching the replay, please comment on the replay if you've got questions. If you have time, Zach maybe respond to those. Otherwise, for those that are interested, really go and check out the free group and approach Zach directly for further assistance, because this type of work literally can change absolutely every area of your life. And I believe we're in a time of the Earth's history where this type of work is essential to get us to the next phase of our collective conscious evolution. There really needs to be an embodiment of this divine masculine and feminine, whatever labels you put on it. I think this work is truly needed. So deeply appreciate your work, and thanks again for your time joining us today.
Thank you, Jeremy, for the opportunity. I appreciate it.